Hello class, so in this video we are going to learn how to use these calculators for their primary purpose, which is graphing, hence why they're called graphing calculators. Alright, so we're going to cover how to graph as well as how to analyze some things in the graphs to get information out of them. By the way, this could be useful for SATs and ACTs and stuff like that when you can use a graphing calculator. Alright, so first off, let's graph a function. So let's do f of x equals the quantity x squared minus 1 divided by the quantity 2x squared minus 5. So first thing you need to do is press the y equals button. Then you can get into any of these functions, y1 through y, I think it says 0. There are 10 functions here. So I'll just use y1 since it's the first one there, not used. Okay. So type it in this exact way, which is parenthesis x squared minus 1, parenthesis, divided by parenthesis 2x squared minus 5 parenthesis. If you don't do that, you will get something wrong and you will be sad. And you will also be very, very confused because it's not going to look right. Alright, so anyway, do that. And then you can press the graph button and then you'll see a graph. And chances are the graph is not exactly going to look the best. You might need to zoom in or zoom out depending on how whoever used it before, or if you used it before, how that was used and how that was zoomed in to another graph. So we're going to learn some ways to make that look better. There are two main ways, which is using the zoom feature and the window feature. Both are useful, and so don't just choose one because you think it's easier. Basically, if you're in my class and you're watching this, you're going to need to learn both, because I will purposely test you in a way that you will epically fail the calculus section if you only choose to learn whatever you decide is the easier one. So don't be lazy, learn both. They're actually not that hard. Okay, so the first thing is the zoom button. Click on that. Once you're done with that, you'll get a list of things like this, and you can choose a certain thing to do. So I would say the first thing that you always want to do is just zoom standard. So click on that. You can either click the number or scroll down and press enter. This makes the graph go from -10 to 10 all around. So x-axis goes from -10 to 10, y-axis goes from -10 to 10. Okay, so once you've done that, there's just a good window to use to start off to see, alright, where am I? Can I see things well? Can I not see things well? And then from there you can zoom in or out, depending on what you need. So then you can press the zoom button again, and then you can press zoom in or zoom out, however many times you need to get to a nice place where you can see the behavior of the entire function. Alright, so this way is quote-unquote easier, so this is what I meant by don't just choose one. A lot of students decide to just choose to learn this one because it is quote-unquote easier, but it's also kind of like when you're on a Word doc or something, when you want to zoom in and out, it has very specific set points where you can zoom in and out, like 100% versus 75%. But what if you want something in the middle so that you can see things in a certain way better? Then you're out of luck here. So you're going to have to learn how to do it with the window. With the window feature, though, you're going to have to type in the numbers manually, and therefore you got to think about which numbers you got to type in rather than just zoom in and out. That's why most people find this thing easier than the window, but it's really not that hard unless you make it hard. So let's just try it again with the window. So I would always go to the standard zoom again and then see how much exactly do we need to adjust. So we see here that we only really need to trim off a little bit from the x and the y-axis. So let's see, for the y-axis I'll make it go from -5 to 5, and in x-axis I'll make it go from -7 to 7. So you just press window, and then y min means the lowest y, which is -5 for us. And then y max is the highest y, which is 5. And then you can do the same thing with -7 to 7, so you will get a window that looks kind of like this. So it's pretty self-explanatory, not too bad. And then you click graph, and then you'll see you get a graph that looks like this. It's a little bit more informative. It trims off just enough and not too much, and doesn't show you too much either. It just shows you exactly what you need to understand basically what's going on. Alright, next thing is values on the graph. So sometimes you'll want to get exact values. So you can use a table or something called trace. So if you press second graph, you'll get to a table of values. This is basically a t-chart, and it'll have every function that's written there. Here we only have a y1 defined, so it'll only give us y1. And yeah, so you get a bunch of graphs, points and stuff. If you want to get more specific things, then you can go to second window, and then you adjust the step size and whatnot, and then you'll be able to see a little bit more specific stuff. Alright, so trace. Let's say you want to find a specific value. So you can go back to the graph, press trace, and then click in a very specific number, like, I don't know, let's say 0. And then you press enter, and it'll give you the value for that right there. Alright, so very last thing is certain types of information about the graph. So let's say that you wanted to find like the x-intercepts, the min, the max, and stuff like that. You can press second trace, and there's this list over here. So if you wanted to find an x-intercept, you can press 0. The term 0 in a graph refers to the x-intercepts. So we can use that to find the x-intercepts. Just press 0, and then it'll ask you left bound. This is because we have multiple x-intercepts. So all you really need to do is move the cursor with the arrow key to somewhere a little bit to the left of that x-intercept. We're going to use the negative x-intercept right now, just for example. So go a little bit to the left of it, press enter, then it'll say right bound. Go a little bit to the right, press enter, and it'll say guess. The reason why it's saying this is it's showing you the two arrows and asking, do you want the thing that is in between these two? If so, then you press enter. If not, then you can just cancel that and then redo the thing. But once you press enter, it'll give us the x-intercept. You can do the same thing with the other one. And you'll see that in this case we get -1 and 1, which you could have guessed by looking at this graph. But the thing is, sometimes it'll look like that, but it might not actually be. And the only way to confirm that basically is if you know algebra well enough, then you can kind of actually tell by looking at the equation and then looking at this. But if not, please don't try to do that, because then you'll probably get yourself in a mess. Alright, so if you want to do things like min or max, you see that this on the list, you see all these other things on the list. This whole left and right bound thing is probably going to be necessary for most of them. So practice that, do it, and you'll be good with that.